Hey everyone. So I want to apologize that it's been quite a while since I've put out a video. I've had a lot going on. I've been very sick. I've had a terrible bout of flu that took me about 2 weeks to get over. Still got a bit of a niggling cough, so hopefully that's not too much of an issue in this video. But also, I had said from the beginning of this channel that when I started this channel that I was only going to upload videos out of a sense of passion and joy and because I wanted to. And so I always try to wait until I have the motivation and the desire to make a video before actually doing it. I don't ever want to feel like I'm in a position where I'm forcing myself to put out a video. So if there are gaps between the videos that I put out, that's usually the reason. It's just I might just not be feeling it, and I don't ever want to force myself. I want this to be completely a passion project for me. Okay, so today I want to talk about another feminine energy dating coach. She goes by the name of Jan Michelle here on YouTube. Just a little bit of background about her. She's another Rory Ray certified dating coach. I don't know why, but these Rory Ray certified dating coaches always seem to hide or be secretive about the fact that they were trained by Rory Ray. I'm not quite sure why, but she's certified through Rory Ray's dating coach certification program. I've actually done a video about that coaching program, some months ago. If you're interested, I was at one stage part of the whole Rory Ray community. It was a very strange time in my life. And I used to follow a lot of these coaches, and Jen Michelle was one of the coaches that I sort of liked at the time. And so, anyway, she's a feminine energy Rory Ray certified coach. She has a channel here on YouTube. She puts out videos on a regular basis. They're rarely triggering for me to watch now, to be honest. And hopefully the reasons for that will become clear in this video. Another little bit of background information. I actually had a coaching session with her about a little over 3 years ago. I was in quite an emotionally abusive relationship at the time, and I went to her for help because I watched her videos and it sounded like she dealt with some of the same things with her husband that I was kind of dealing with my boyfriend. And I was looking for advice about how to save the relationship. What I really needed was support in leaving that relationship because it was really bad for me and I was not being treated well. But Jen kind of gave me, in that coaching session, she should have sort of gave me this false hope that there were things that I could do to turn the relationship around, to kind of reignite this man's feelings of love and passion for me, and that I could somehow, turn this relationship into something great. And this is something that I mention in a lot of these videos that I do about these feminine energy dating coaches. Sometimes you might watch the advice that they're giving or the videos that they're putting out, and you might think, oh, well, that doesn't sound too bad. Maybe it's a bit old-fashioned, but what's wrong with that? The problem is that behind the scenes, these dating coaches are giving women advice and putting an inordinate amount of responsibility on the woman to make her think that she can actually salvage and turn around a toxic or abusive relationship. And I've seen this many times. I've seen it in the Facebook groups. I saw it in the Rory Ray blog community. I experienced it when I had coaching sessions with these coaches. I saw other women that I was friendly with in these groups receive the same type of advice. And if you really dissect the advice and you kind of read between the lines and you really go into the nuance of what they're saying, you start to see how these messages are communicated. That if relationships aren't working out, if there are problems with the man's behavior, it's ultimately the woman's fault and her responsibility to fix. So, this is why I'm so passionate about speaking about these coaches, exposing them, exposing their advice, really dissecting what it is that they're saying and really trying to caution you against seeing them as experts or taking to heart the things that they say. So just wanted to give that bit of an introduction. This video from Jan Michelle is only about 7 minutes, so hopefully my commentary video on the whole will not be too long. won't be as long as my videos usually are. But on the other hand, I do have very strong feelings about the things that she says in this video. I have very strong feelings about the content and the advice, and I'm probably going to be stopping it a lot and saying quite a lot about it. So again, I'm not quite sure how long this video is going to end up being. Right off the bat, I think we have to look at the title of this video. You have to notice right off the bat the message that it's communicating. 3 ways we, and by we she means the women in her audience, we as women, block him from being the man he's capable of being. So we see she's positioning this as a man has this potential of being this great man, this man that he's capable of being, and that we as women actually have the power to prevent him from reaching this potential. This right off the bat, before we've even got into the video itself, this is incredibly damaging, very, very toxic messaging, very misogynistic, very patriarchal. It's a very, very outdated idea that a lot of women have internalized, that if a man is not being a great man or a good man, or if he's not reaching his potential, he's not being the man that we need him to be, or the partner that we need him to be, that is somehow our responsibility and something that we are doing to, like, he is just this helpless victim of us. So again, the title already makes me extremely angry. But let's go ahead and listen to the video and we'll just see what Jen has to say. Again, I'm kind of still getting over flu a little bit, so I apologize if I cough occasionally. I will really try not to let it be too disruptive. All right, let's go ahead and listen to how we block a man from being the man he's capable of being.
Hi, Jen here from Jen Michelle Coaching, and today I want to talk about 3 ways you block him from being the man he's capable of being. For those of you new to my channel, I would love to invite you to subscribe. I release a video weekly. Number 1, we don't trust him to work through difficult emotions. This is a way we block a man from growing into his potential.
We don't trust a man to work through difficult emotions. What does that mean exactly? What does that look like? I've listened to that statement several times and I can't, it's such a nebulous statement. I can't quite wrap my head around what exactly that is supposed to mean or what that's supposed to look like. And I don't think she explains it either. We don't trust him to work through difficult emotions. Surely if we don't trust a man, that's an internal thing going on with us. How does that affect him? She doesn't actually explain what it is a woman could actually be doing with her behavior that signals distrust of him not being able to work through difficult emotions. And so again, I have a problem with this kind of thing, these nebulous, very vague statements, because all it does is it kind of causes a woman to ruminate, someone who is maybe not very sure of herself, someone who thinks, well, maybe she is responsible for how a man is behaving, will kind of sit there and internalize that and think, okay, well, do I trust him? Don't I trust him? Am I causing whatever this problem is that we're experiencing? I don't really know what I'm doing that's wrong, but I feel like it must be me. You see how that could happen? I really don't like it.
We're so scared of him feeling or reacting to us in a certain way that we keep him nice and comfortable, not having to stretch himself in any way, but to just stay in this neat little box where he doesn't have to face any of his triggers, right?
I just want to say, if you are scared, to use her word, of your partner, your husband, boyfriend, guy that you're dating, whomever he may be, if you are scared of his reactions to negative emotions, I really want you to ask yourself why. Is that an issue with you? As in, maybe something has triggered you because of past traumatic experiences or anxiety that you may have surrounding negative emotions and people's reactions to them? Are you being triggered, and is that something that's going on internally with you? Or has this man done something to make you scared of him, to frighten you of how he reacts when he faces a difficult emotion like anger or disappointment or frustration? Fear is always something to pay attention to. And if we are scared, I don't like she's taking a very condescending tone with the women in her audience, which I really don't like. She's sort of saying, "We are so scared. We keep a man in this nice little box," like almost belittling women for feeling scared. And I really, really don't like that. That's this internalized misogyny that I'm talking about. If you are afraid of somebody or if you're afraid of something, that is always something to pay attention to and to really sit with it and say, okay, what is it exactly that I'm scared of? Where is that fear coming from? You don't just dismiss that fear. She's kind of encouraging us here to dismiss the fear, saying it's kind of worthless. That if we're scared, we just shouldn't be scared because we're blocking the man of reaching his true potential. But if you're scared, there'll be a reason for that. And it's really worth knowing what that reason is. I don't want you to take the advice of dating coaches like this and let it cause you to belittle your own feelings and betray yourself because you're sort of thinking, well, I just shouldn't be scared. I have no right to be scared. If you are afraid, you have every right to feel that way. And it's a really good idea to sit with that fear and decide where it's coming from. Have I had past trauma that's causing me to be afraid? Or has this man done something in the past to scare me? Are his reactions to negative emotions scary? And so I have a legitimate reason to be frightened of him feeling a negative emotion.
One can grow in this world. And in fact, it shrinks our world and makes us feel like we're living in a shoebox, right? So we want to actually not intentionally poke the bear, but we want to be authentic and honest and tell the truth of what's going on, even if that means ruffling some feathers from time to time. Yes, there is an art to telling the truth, which means you're checking in with your system, you're calm, you're steady, you're coming from a place of love, you're not accusatory, you're not using a bunch of you statements, but you're also not afraid of him having an emotional reaction and needing some time and space to work through that, right? So this is something that we don't go into fix-it mode.
Now, what she's just said there is good advice. If you have something that you need to voice, some concerns that you need to express, if you need to have a conversation and it might cause some difficult emotions in your partner, it is very important that you are able to express that and that you're able to voice problems and you're able to discuss your feelings and opinions about things without fear of how the other person is going to react. And yes, it is very important not to come across as accusing or demanding or anything like that, and to use solid communication techniques in order to communicate your needs and feelings and opinions. And you absolutely shouldn't be afraid of doing that, not just with your partner, or, in my opinion, with anyone in your life. You should feel safe enough to have those conversations. And again, as long as you are communicating respectfully and kindly and you're communicating honestly and these are genuine concerns that you have, you should feel absolutely free to have those conversations with your partner, and with all the people in your life. So that is good advice. I like the fact that she is saying we shouldn't be so afraid of ruffling feathers, that it causes us to kind of keep quiet about our own needs and feelings and diminish ourselves. But it contradicts what she said not very long ago about how we're not supposed to be, where she kind of doesn't want us to feel any fear either. And if you look at it in context, she is kind of glossing over why the woman might feel afraid to bring up any feelings or problems that she might be experiencing. If she feels afraid, that's not something to just dismiss and gloss over. She's wanting us to acknowledge our feelings, but apparently not when that feeling is fear of having a conversation. That is a legitimate issue to look at. If you're afraid to talk to your partner about issues and problems that come up in the relationship, you need to ask yourself why. And she's not doing that. She's not delving into the reasons why a woman might be scared to have those conversations. I strongly believe that all our relationships should be safe enough to have difficult conversations in. And we shouldn't fear our partners or anyone in our life, really. We shouldn't fear them so much that we suppress our needs and feelings and our need to have difficult conversations. And again, that's something coaches like this don't delve into because they keep everything right on the surface. They need you to feel like everything is within your control, everything is within your power to change. They need you to feel that because that's what keeps the audience coming back for more. The idea that this person has solutions that they can implement. Now, if you are afraid of your partner, afraid of their reactions to difficult emotions, that isn't necessarily something that you can fix. This partner may be abusive. This partner may have very volatile reactions to difficult conversations. And that's not something that you can kind of fix with your own communication style or your own internal work. That is something that your partner needs to work on themselves. And if they don't, you need to decide, okay, do I really want to stay in a relationship where someone is frightening me so much that I can't have difficult conversations with them? But as I say, these feminine energy coaches are not going to go into that because that falls outside the scope of what they can sell you to make you think that it's within your power to create the perfect relationship with any man that you're with, which a lot of them actually say outright. They don't ever delve into the dynamics of relationships that are toxic or abusive, and we'll actually see that she says that later on in this video.
With a man and he's like really angry or upset, and this can happen in my relationship too. Sometimes I like to use a personal example. If he's angry or upset, instead of trying to fix it, I typically just give him space and let him know, if you want to talk, I'm here. Otherwise, I'm just going to give you some space. Or I don't say anything and I just tend to myself, but I don't go jumping into the lake with him, right? This is where we want to really retrain ourselves to be steady.
Again, what exactly does go jumping into the lake with him mean? Being angry and upset are legitimate emotions that all of us are going to feel at some point in our lives, and our partner might feel these emotions as well. And she's kind of saying, well, if he feels angry or upset, you just need to leave him to deal with those emotions on his own. And you don't want to, I think that's what she means when she says, don't go jumping into the lake, although she doesn't exactly explain that. But why can't we kind of if our partner is upset, why can't we go and comfort them or talk to them about it? Or if they're angry, why can't we ask questions and try to have a conversation and potentially try to resolve whatever the issue is? Why is it that the only solution she's presenting is that we need to kind of go off and tend to ourselves and leave the man alone with his emotions and I suppose just leave him to it? It seems to be predicated on this idea that all these feminine energy dating coaches have, that a man is a perfect and complete being with all the solutions that he needs inside himself, and he doesn't need us in any way. And so if he's having a difficult emotion, we just need to leave him to it. And I don't know, to me, that doesn't exactly sound like a very equal or co-creative relationship to me. It sounds kind of cold, it sounds kind of distant, it sounds very passive. But a lot of these feminine energy dating coaches will say stuff like this. And she's going to go on to kind of say this in a different way.
that I've talked about, but not go jumping into the river feeling like we need to go swimming in the difficult emotions with him, and trust that when he's ready to, come to shore, that we're there and we're ready and open and willing to talk about it. But we have to allow men to be able to move through something that's hard and witness them work through it and get to the other side, so we can build deeper trust, faith, and intimacy together.
So a lot of these feminine energy dating coaches, and specifically Rory Ray dating coaches, like to use this metaphor of a woman as being a lighthouse and a man being like a ship out at sea. And if you ever hear a feminine energy dating coach use this metaphor of be the lighthouse, you know that that is a Rory Ray dating coach. This is the term that she coined. Now, yes, there is a time and a place, and it definitely can be appropriate to give your partner or anyone who's experiencing difficult emotions, it could be appropriate to give them space to kind of sit with those emotions on their own for a bit and process those emotions. They might not be ready to talk about it, and that's totally fair enough. But I also don't understand why you can't also ask your partner, hey, listen, do you want space? Would you like to be left alone right now with your feelings? Or would you like to talk about it? Would you like a hug? Is there anything I can do to help? Is this something that you want to discuss with me that we can maybe resolve and tackle together? The way that she's also painting men here, I think is potentially quite harmful to men. That she's saying, well, the only appropriate way to deal with this situation is to leave him on his own, to deal with his difficult feelings, and he has to come and find you and let you know when he's ready to talk. I think that could potentially be a little bit dismissive of your partner. It could make him feel a little bit abandoned, could make him feel as if maybe you're being a bit cold and not caring about how he's feeling. I would be inclined to want to at least check in with my partner and say, hey, look, is there anything I can do? Would you like to talk about it, or would you prefer to be left alone? And that way I know I'm also showing him that his needs and feelings are important to me as well. And I don't like this, that it's just, she wants to demonize women who do that and say, well, that they're not being a lighthouse and they're jumping into the lake with the man in his feelings. Well, guess what? We're human beings. We experience messy emotions sometimes, and we need one another. We often need one another for support, and we're not all these just completely independent, autonomous beings at all times that can just self-regulate all the time and completely process our emotions on our own, and that we always have the mental clarity to know that when we want to talk about it. Sometimes we need the people in our lives to show that they care a little bit. It's very much a give and take, and I really don't like the way she's painting relationship between men and women as, well, the woman just has to be sort of this passive lighthouse standing over here. The man has to sort everything out on his own, and it's his job to just come and find his partner when he's ready to talk. It feels not only misogynistic, to kind of shame women for wanting to help their male partner with his difficult emotions, but it also seems to me to be rather unkind and cold towards the man, not to at least encourage her to check in and see if he's okay and if he maybe wants to talk about those feelings. So I just I find it hard to hold back once I start talking about how much I hate this sort of advice and how problematic and toxic I find it. I actually find it quite hard to hold back. So I'm just gonna keep going and try not to be too wordy here.
Mother him. This can look a bunch of different ways. It can look like overgiving and intimacy together. Number 2, we mother him. This can look a bunch of different ways. It can look like overgiving. Let me do all these things for you. Underneath the overgiving is often us not believing we're worthy just as we are, feeling like we have to earn.
I'd love it if she could give some examples of what mothering and overgiving actually mean. Notice how all this advice and all these statements are really vague. There's no concrete practical examples in here of a real life situation that a couple might find themselves in. What does she mean when she says mothering, when she says overgiving? Does she mean cooking dinner for him, doing his laundry, tidying, cleaning, running errands for him? What exactly is she talking about? Is she talking about providing emotional support in the way that a mother would? It's she's trying to make out as if it's this black and white thing, like mothering bad, not mothering good. But without concrete examples, it becomes quite difficult to know what it is she's talking about and to try and actually decipher what the advice is actually saying.
It's also not trusting him to be able to do things for himself, or maybe our own fears or controls coming into play where we think it needs to look a certain way and we don't like the way he does it. So we're just going to like innocently sweep in and do it.
So when she says it could be the woman's control issues, that she doesn't trust a man to do things for himself, again, what exactly does she mean by that? And what exactly does that look like? Is she trying to say that a woman kind of might come in and do a task for a man before he's even had a chance to do it? Because what I worry about is that she's talking about a situation where a woman might be genuinely concerned that certain important tasks are actually not being done at all. And she might feel that she has no choice but to do them, otherwise, they won't get done. And I really, really, again, I find this very condescending. The tone that she's using, the language that she's using seems to me to be very belittling of women who do an awful lot of labor. For the most part, mothers, women do a lot of tasks in the home, still to this day, that some other members of the family are not always willing or able to do. And women take on a lot of the time an inordinate amount of labor in terms of cooking and cleaning and doing housework, especially if they can't afford to hire help or if they don't have help. And I don't like this way that these feminine energy coaches have of characterizing this as, well, it's a woman's control issues, or she doesn't trust the man to do it, so she's just taking over. Well, what about those women who do tasks day in and day out for their husband or their boyfriend or their male partner, and their children? You know, because either the partner or the kids isn't able to do those tasks, or simply isn't helping her, isn't or I shouldn't even say helping, because those tasks are, in my opinion, it's everybody's responsibility to to do things like cooking, cleaning, tidying up. There's really no reason why it should fall squarely on the woman's shoulders. But in many households, that is exactly what happens. A woman is often still expected to do a lot of the household chores. And a man, in many cases, expects a woman to do that and doesn't even necessarily go out of his way to offer to do some of those chores, or just do them without even saying anything, but just kind of leaves those things undone until the woman does them. Now, Jen, what I want to know from you is that her control issues? Is that her lack of trust in the man? If she decides, well, okay, he doesn't seem to be cooking, so I'm just going to go ahead and cook, otherwise we won't have a cooked dinner. Or no one seems to be doing the laundry, so I'm going to go ahead and do the laundry, otherwise it's not going to get done. I mean, Jen, at what point do we stop blaming the woman for having control and trust issues? And at what point do we start expecting men and potentially other people in the house to have some sense of responsibility for also, doing household chores? And at what point is a woman allowed to say, hey, I'm feeling a bit burnt out here. I'm feeling like all of this responsibility is on me. And at what point is she allowed to say, you know what? I don't want all these tasks to be squarely on my shoulders. I'm going to choose a partner who is going to want to do those things with me and for me, and is also going to want to, cook and clean and participate in running the household smoothly. Again, I just think this narrative of characterizing it as, oh, well, the woman has control issues and she doesn't trust a man to do things right, and so it's her way of trying to control him. I mean, yes, it could be that. It could be that a woman is just the woman in the house is so busy being perfectionistic and wanting to do everything herself that she isn't even allowing the man to jump in and do some of those tasks. But I highly, highly doubt that's the case in the majority of circumstances. And I really, really don't like how she's just letting a man off the hook here and saying, well, you know, it's purely the woman's lack of trust in him, or it's the fact that she's trying to control him, which is why he's not doing the household chores. He would of course be washing the dishes. Of course he'd be making a three-course meal. Of course he'd be doing all of the laundry and all of the cleaning and doing every chore that needed to be done and running every errand. If only the woman would just trust him to do it. That's all that's holding him back. I mean, if she would just trust him to do it, of course he would do it all. I mean, it's absurd, really, when you break it down like that. But again, feminine energy dating coaches like this kind of rely on you not looking too closely into their advice because they need you to internalize everything. They need you to subtly, without actually saying outright that they're putting all the responsibility on you as the woman, they need you to internalize this idea that it is all your fault, that it's all your responsibility, that you can fix this, you can change things. Even if you have a lazy partner who's not contributing to the household chores, who's not helping out, who's not pulling his weight, it's still your fault. And it's just you because you're not trusting him. You're trying to control him. You're trying to do everything yourself and trying to do everything perfectly. That's why your partner is not pulling his weight. And of course, I said this in other videos, the reason that they have this narrative that they need you to believe like that it's all your responsibility and all your fault is because they have courses, books, videos, coaching products to sell you. And if you don't believe that this is something that you have the power to change, you won't buy those products. If it could be that just you're in the wrong relationship or with the wrong partner, and that actually this might be your partner's problem, well then, coaches like this can't sell you anything for that. So this is what it all boils down to. But it's very important just to be aware that that is really the underlying message here. So yeah, I really, really don't like it.
Certain way, and we don't like the way he does it, so we're just going to like innocently sweep in and do it, and as a result he becomes complacent and unmotivated and just like chills.
So it's your fault. You as the woman are responsible for him becoming complacent and unmotivated. It's because you don't trust him. It's because you are so busy being the perfect wife and mother, and you're so busy doing everything for him, and that's why he becomes complacent and motivated. It's not a problem with him. It's not he has no responsibility to fix any of that. This is your fault. This is a problem that you have created by just needing to be too perfect, needing to overgive and mother him. And that's why he's complacent and unmotivated. You bad, bad woman.
Like mom doing all the things, right? This is not going to support a man being a man and connecting to really the beautiful components of the masculine, which is motivation, which is forward thinking, being a visionary, bringing into motion things that we can't see as the feminine, right?
Oof. Okay, two things. Firstly, um, if you are somehow with a man who seems to want a mother figure rather than a partner, I think you really need to ask yourself if that is the dynamic that you want for your relationship. And it might be something that you don't mind. There may be plenty of women out there who really don't mind doing a lot of the tasks that we would traditionally associate with mothers. And they don't mind doing that for the man that they're with. And that's perfectly valid. I'm not here to criticize or shame a woman if that's what she wants to do. That's perfectly okay as long as that's her choice. But again, if you're not comfortable in a relationship where you feel as if the partner that you're with expects you to take on a mothering role and expects you to do all of these household tasks or kind of overgive to them in some way, then that's not necessarily, that's not a you problem beyond just knowing that, like, maybe this isn't the relationship for you. Maybe this just isn't the partner for you. It doesn't mean that you have trust or control issues. I mean, you might, I don't know. But to my way of thinking, if you're with a man who expects you to mother him in some way, or if you're feeling this need or this guilt to mother the person that you're with and overgive, and it's making you feel resentful, it's not what you want to do, then that is something to pay attention to. It's something to have a conversation with your partner about. Really get clear on what you're both looking for out of the relationship. How do you see your your roles in the relationship, or like what do you each expect from one another? How could you potentially divide up chores and tasks in such a way that you feel like it's fair, and neither of you feel taken for granted or resentful, and that there is a sort of a more equal division of labor in the house. And if those conversations don't lead to anything productive and you feel drained and taken for granted and maybe taken advantage of, or if a man is unmotivated and complacent, to use her words, I really want to urge you not to take that on and say, well, this is me being a bad partner. I don't want you to think of that as, well, I have caused this problem. No, you haven't. You might just need to re-examine that relationship and that partner and sort of think to yourself, well, is this actually, if this is not actually changing, is this really the relationship and the partner that I want? Maybe it would be better for me to move on to a different relationship and a different partner with someone who actually does feel motivated and who isn't complacent and who actually does want to um, share the burden of these adult tasks and chores with me. Maybe that's something to consider. There are plenty of men out there who are perfectly capable of cooking and cleaning and doing laundry and doing household tasks, every bit as capable as the woman. And if you want that sort of a partner, then you have every right to have that kind of relationship. And you don't need to sit there stewing and you know, blaming yourself for being in this situation in your relationship. So I really hope that I've kind of really made that clear, and maybe helped you to think about how these dynamics really do work in practice, and how harmful this sort of messaging can be, and how it can keep you stuck in a relationship that's just potentially not right for you. So, the other thing I wanted to point out that she said that I really have a problem with is she talked about how men are capable of this visionary forward thinking that we, in her words, we as the feminine just can't see. I'm sorry, but what the actual fuck? What in the 1950s patriarchal, traditional, misogynistic nonsense is going on? Since when are women not visionaries? Since when are women not forward thinking? And since when is that only a masculine trait? I mean, I don't really, there's so much I could say about that, but I think it's kind of self-evident why this is so misogynistic and problematic. I don't think I even need to really say any more. Let's just let her keep going, though.
Bringing into motion things that we can't see as the feminine, right? So
Bringing into motion things that we can't see as the feminine. Again, I would love her to give an example of this because she's just glossing over this incredibly misogynistic, incredibly backwards statement that she's just made. And she's not going to go into any more detail because I suspect it would make her sound even worse than the statement already sounds. And so she's just going to gloss over it. That apparently the man can see all kinds of things. He's a visionary. He's a forward thinking. He's the forward thinking one. And we as feminine, supposedly feminine energy beings, we cannot see all the great and incredible things that the man can see. And again, I don't feel as if I even really need to say any more other than just pointing out that she has said that. And do you really, really want to trust the advice of a woman, of a person who thinks this way? Just really ask yourself that. I mean, if, and this is what they all believe, these feminine energy dating coaches, they really believe that men have these special powers to see and do things that women just don't have. And that's how they justify advising women to be really passive and to play, to play kind of submissive and inferior to a man, because supposedly he has all these magical and special abilities that we as women just don't have. And you can kind of see how this really dovetails nicely and fits in really nicely with sort of conservative Christian ideals, which talk about a man being the head of the household and women submitting to their husbands and all this sort of thing. It fits in really nicely with that. And I do genuinely worry about women who buy into this way of thinking and the harm that they could potentially be doing to themselves and the way in which they could be potentially really clipping their own wings and like kind of constraining themselves because they feel like, oh, well, I'm just a woman. I can't see the things that he can see. He's the visionary. He's the forward thinking one. I'm just the woman in the relationship. And it's so wrong. It's so disgusting and it's just not true. But we're gonna keep persevering with this. This is really heavy stuff.
we can't see as the feminine, right? So we want to support his gifts really coming online. And if we are thinking our way is the right way, we're not seeing our own blind spots and we're putting limitations on his growth potential.
Okay, again, this is very confusing language, very vague and confusing language that she's using. It's really awful. But let's just go back over what she said. We want to support his gifts coming online. What exactly does that mean? Is she implying that women have some kind of magical light switch that where they or some sort of magical button that they can press to activate a man's gifts kind of springing into being? Like a man just can't use his talents and abilities until a woman supports him coming online. What does that mean exactly? Again, it's this very vague misogynistic language that implies that women have this inordinate level of control over how a man expresses himself and a man reaching his full potential, which I don't buy into at all. And then she talks about how if we as women think that our way is the right way, then that means we have a blind spot and that we are kind of limiting the man in some way. And again, I hope I don't need to really go into too much detail to explain how misogynistic and problematic that way of thinking is, how this really encourages this internal misogyny where women think, well, I can't possibly be right because I'm just a woman. And even if I can see a better solution, if I can see a better way of tackling this situation, I dare not speak up, or I dare not assert myself and say, well, I really think this is the right way, because then I am blocking a man from reaching his true potential, and then it encourages this feeling of shame in a woman for just simply having a good idea and for thinking she's right about something. I mean, what kind of awful misogynistic message is this to be communicating? That women are not allowed to be right about things. We're not allowed to have a better idea than a man. Otherwise, we're blocking. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Since when is a man so fragile that a woman simply having a good idea and being right about something that's a threat to him being the person that he is sort of destined to be? It's just, again, I think if I keep going on and on about this, I'm just going to get really, really angry, and I'm just going to keep repeating myself and going off on a tangent. So I'm going to try and stay focused, but hopefully you can see the same problems with this that I can.
Number 3, we don't let him lead and we try to control him. If we view...
Well, it sounds like this third point that she's about to make is really just a rehash of the same things that she's been saying in the previous 2 points about how women are too controlling, we don't let him lead. Again, this is about this whole being submissive and passive nonsense that these feminine energy dating coaches are all about. They're all about this. It ties in very well with traditional conservative Christianity and the man being the head of the household and the leader. This feminine energy dating stuff is very much the same sort of idea. And it really, really tries to shame women anytime women step outside of this very narrowly defined role that they have in the minds of these people, where they are just simply there to support and enable a man, and that anything that a man doesn't achieve in the relationship or doesn't do in the relationship, or if he's not stacking up somehow to the partner that she needs him to be, then that's somehow on her. She hasn't been submissive enough. She hasn't been supportive enough. She's been too controlling, and he's just somehow he is the leader in the house and in the relationship, but yet he's also so helpless in the face of a woman's lack of support that he just simply can't be the man that he needs to be unless she lets him be the leader. You know, it's just, it's so frustrating to listen to. It really, really is.
Don't let him lead and we try to control him. If we view anything that goes off of our way or the way we see it as a threat, then he's going to be really limited and he is going to feel boxed in and he is going to lose confidence in his ability to lead.
Hang on. So she's saying if we have a good idea, or if we think that we have the right answer to something or a good solution to something, and he chooses not to follow that, but we think we're right and we see that as threatening somehow, then we are limiting him from being the person that he is supposed to be, just simply because we think we have a good solution to a particular problem. It seems like that's what she is saying. But again, notice she doesn't give any actual concrete practical examples of this, of how this actually plays out in real life. Because I think she knows that if she did, it would reveal just how misogynistic and sexist and patriarchal all of this stuff actually is. So she keeps it nice and vague. She lets her audience draw their own conclusions, but there are all these toxic messages seeping through like poison. These like really, really women hating and women blaming sort of narratives that seep into what she's saying. and she's just dripping them on her audience, and the shame and the guilt is just, for me, it's just absolutely palpable in this video.
Be growing in resentment, and he's not going to feel good within the dynamic either. This happened to me really early on in my marriage. You know, for those of you that have followed me for a while, my first year of marriage was a real awakening for me, right? Where it really brought to the surface all of my stuff that I was in a slumber with before. And it showed me like, wow, okay, it was my first layer of awakening where it was like, I need to make some changes within myself. I need to loosen my grip. I need to let go of all this fear and do some deeper work within myself.
So hang on. You discovered in your first year of marriage, it sounds like, that you internalized the problems you were having with your husband as your control issues and that you were afraid. Again, she doesn't go into any detail, so we're kind of left in the dark about what she's talking about here. But I do think it's interesting that before that, she talks about how if a woman has a solution, she really kind of needs to keep quiet about it. She needs to let the man solve the problem. Otherwise, he's not going to feel supported, and he's not going to feel like he can be the man that he's supposed to be. And she's going to feel resentful. And I really have to wonder, why does it have to be like this? Why do relationships have to be this power struggle of control and resentment and feeling stifled? Why can two people, whether it's a man and a woman, or two women or two men, or non-binary people, or whomever it might be, why can two people not come together in a relationship as equals? And why can they not talk about things and be respectful of one another and listen to one another's ideas and feelings and go with the solution that seems to work the best? And like, yes, there might occasionally be feelings of resentment. There might occasionally be feelings of anger and upset. But that doesn't mean that that's the partner's fault for, and that they're limiting you from being the person that you need to be. That could just be, this is life, and sometimes situations don't play out perfectly. And hopefully, everyone in the relationship is being respected and treated with kindness and love, and hopefully you can talk things out. But I really don't understand why it needs to be these very rigidly defined roles. And if you're not willing to submit to that very rigidly defined role of what a woman is supposed to be in a relationship, well, then you have control issues. It's absurd to me. And again, I find it incredibly harmful.
The way that looked was trusting that there's so many different ways to get to the final destination. And in
That's
fact,
true.
looking back on my life, my husband had an ability to see things in a way that I couldn't. And his plan was often the riskier, but better long-term plan for our family and for me. And
Well, if that is the case, if that really is true, although given everything you've said so far in this video about how men are visionaries and forward thinking and how women just can't possibly understand, I tend to doubt it. But if that truly is the case, if he truly did have the better ideas, and he was, he had the riskier solutions, but they were the ones that usually worked out better in the long run, I hope he was able to communicate that to you in such a way that you were able to feel secure in his decision making, and that you were able to kind of trust that things were going to work out for the best. If he was just barreling ahead and dismissing your input and not allowing you to have a say in the decisions he was making, or not explaining his decisions to you, I see that as a problem. And I see that as a problem with him. Um, I really find it incredibly sad that she internalizes this as being her issues with control, and that she just was too afraid to kind of let go of the reins. Um, our partners also have a responsibility. Both of us in the relationship have a responsibility to communicate with one another and to help. We both have a responsibility in a relationship to make our partners feel safe and to help them to understand the decisions that we're making. You can't just say, well, I'm the man and it's God ordained that I make these decisions and you have to just get over it and trust me, and that's that. Otherwise, you have trust and control issues. I mean, to me, I don't like that's totally toxic and unhealthy. A healthy and respectful relationship should be all about communicating, and it should be about, helping our partner to understand. And if they are saying, look, I'm a bit afraid of this decision that you're making, I don't quite understand it, but it's about being willing to have those conversations. And a man is not let off the hook from explaining his decisions simply because he's a man. I mean, I hate to have to be the one to tell you this, Jen, but it seems like it needs to be said, and I just hope that your audience is able to kind of fill in these gaps as well, because I mean, this is some really, really toxic messaging that we're getting here. And it just kind of makes me very worried. It makes me very worried for people who follow this woman, religiously and think that she is a model to emulate in relationships.
Riskier, but better long-term plan for our family and for me and for him, because he was really thinking comprehensively about all of us in a way that I couldn't. And
Well, if you weren't able to think about it comprehensively and he was, and again, I have my doubts about this, but if that truly is the case, again, he should have explained that to you, and there should have been the openness for dialogue to be happening and for communication to be happening and for him to explain his thinking, because you are supposed to be married. It's supposed to be an equal partnership. And it's not that you are this kind of submissive, subservient child in the relationship who just has to trust their parent to do the right thing. No, you're both equal partners in the relationship, and you have a right to understand his decisions that, in your words, affect both you and your entire family. You have a right to understand those decisions. And so, again, I hope he was able to explain it to you in such a way that it made sense so that you could also feel comfortable with those decisions.
step back and we let a healthy man lead. I always get like little comments and notes. Well, what if he's unhealthy or toxic? I'm not talking about that. So, of course,
I bet you're not. Remember earlier in the video, sort of right at the beginning, I said that these feminine energy dating coaches never ever veer into the territory of toxic or abusive relationships. And there are a surprising number of relationships that are actually toxic or abusive in some way. And yet they don't want to touch that topic. You'll often hear them say, oh, well, they're talking about a healthy man, whatever that might be. But they won't go into dynamics of abuse or toxic dynamics in a relationship. And to be honest, I think the reason for that is that the line between abusive behavior, toxic behavior, and the sort of behavior that they are promoting in their content, I think that line is incredibly blurry. I really do. I've said this in all my videos about feminine energy dating advice, that line between what's toxic and abusive and what these coaches are advocating for becomes really murky in those waters, and it becomes really difficult sometimes to tell the difference between what should I be doing as like a feminine energy woman and what is actually toxic and abusive behavior on the part of my partner. And that becomes very murky when these coaches are coaching their clients as well. Like I said, you could have women who are actually stuck in relationships that are very emotionally, even physically abusive. And these dating coaches could be giving them advice that is actually causing them to stay stuck in those relationships rather than encouraging them to see the toxic, abusive dynamics that they're caught up in. I think I did mention another one of Rory Ray's certified coaches, Adrienne Everhart. I used to be in her Facebook group a couple of years ago. or it wasn't just a couple of years. I think it was at least 3 years ago. But anyway, there was a woman in there who did come onto the group to talk about a relationship with a fiance who was being physically abusive. And Adrian and all of a lot of the comments on her post were of other women in the group kind of being very shocked and very concerned and encouraging her to leave. And Adrian actually stepped into that post and shut down the comments. And simply because people were telling her to leave. And Adrian made some sort of a comment that it wasn't anybody else's place to tell a woman to leave an abusive relationship or to leave a relationship. And I just think, well, okay, fair enough. It's not anyone else's place to tell a person to leave a relationship, but when people are expressing concern and shock over someone who is in an abusive relationship, I can't help thinking that that is a lot better than the things these coaches say, where they're not even willing to get into the territory of abusive, toxic behavior. And instead, they're just constantly giving women advice about how to kind of let the man be the leader and how he's in charge and how he has to make all the decisions. This is, if anything, this advice is going to keep a woman who is in an abusive relationship just stuck there for a lot longer, in my opinion. So, so Jen is saying here, she's not talking about men who are toxic or who are abusive or problematic. And again, I think there's a very good reason for that. It's because they have nothing when it comes to, abusive relationships. They only have advice which is going to put an inordinate amount of responsibility on the woman's shoulders. When it comes to advice about how to leave a relationship, how to recognize toxic behavior, it's very thin on the ground with these feminine energy dating coaches. They don't tend to like to talk about that.
Unhealthy or toxic. I'm not talking about that. So, of course, you're going to have to be discerning in these videos to see if what I'm talking about.
So, when it comes to so-called feminine energy ways of behaving, then she has all the answers. She's going to tell you exactly how to behave. But when it comes to deciding whether a man is toxic or unhealthy, that's for you to discern. That's on you. She's not going to give you any kind of clues about what could be toxic or unhealthy behavior. No, 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 no. That's for you to be discerning. But everything else, all the feminine energy stuff, well, then she's got all the answers. Okay, got it.
Your situation, because I'm speaking to an overall healthy dynamic, but leaving room for a man to be a human, right? So we want to trust a healthy man to be able to get us from point A to point B without stepping in and intervening.
Does she realize that even a so-called healthy man can still behave in a problematic or abusive way? Does she understand that just because a man is healthy, it doesn't mean he's perfect? He might still make mistakes. He might still have errors in judgment. He might still treat his partner in a way that is totally uncalled for. And just because he is overall healthy, it doesn't mean that a woman should just be passive and stand by and just trust him completely in every single situation. I mean, it's very black and white thinking here, isn't it? And there's no nuance, and none of this is actually grounded in reality, in my opinion.
We want our man to be masculine, then we have to actually instill confidence in his leadership, meaning we have to trust his ability to lead. So that could look like, I trust you to make the right decision, whatever you think is best.
Whatever you think is best. So she shouldn't have any input, any opinion about his decisions. She should just abdicate all decision making in the relationship to him. Whatever he thinks is best, she should just shut up and accept it. I mean, is there another way to interpret what she's saying here?
So that could look like, I trust you to make the right decision, whatever you think is best. Letting go, not stepping in to adjust, tweak, make all these sort of little modifications or adjustments to suit your comfort level, but to kind of like take that.
So what? Does a woman not have a right to be comfortable with his decisions? Does she not have a right to? She's talking about making all these little adjustments in this really condescending way. She's being very patronizing, as if making little adjustments is somehow a bad thing. Again, the internal misogyny is coming through very strongly for me here. But is she saying that women don't have a right to have input? They're not entitled to feel comfortable with their partner's decision. It's just whatever he thinks is best. I mean, that's what she's saying. It's this is disgusting. This is so backward. This is so outdated. This is so misogynistic. Like, yes, is there a time and a place for maybe saying to a partner, you know what, you can decide this time, you can choose this time. Maybe if you're taking turns deciding what movie to watch or which restaurant to go and eat at or where to go on holiday, there could be scope for letting your partner make the decision sometimes. But I mean, are we living in a Victorian era where men make all the decisions and women are not allowed to have an opinion or any input on those decisions? Because I mean, to me, there's no other way to interpret what she's saying. And it's very disturbing to me.
Just tweak, make all these sort of little modifications or adjustments to suit your comfort level, but to kind of like take that step back and let his confidence and empowered masculine begin to build. These are all beautiful ways where we help him rise into who he can truly be and serve the greater good of the relationship, the marriage, wherever you may be right now in your situation, or even those of you dating. A wonderful practice to embrace to build a beautiful foundation with a man. I hope these 3 tips are very supportive to you and any space you may be in right now with love or intimacy. If you are interested,
Okay, I've had enough of that. That's the end of the video, really. To me, the internalized misogyny, the contempt for the way that women behave really comes through very strongly in this video. To me, she's very belittling, very shaming of women in this video. She heaps a lot of blame onto women. She heaps a lot of responsibility onto women for encouraging or supporting or helping a man to be who he is meant to be or to reach his full potential. She's putting an inordinate amount of the responsibility for that onto her female audience, onto women in relationships. And I really hate it. I think I've driven that point home very, very strongly in this video and in this commentary. And unfortunately, I had hoped that this would be a video that's a bit on the shorter side. But again, I got very passionate and maybe a bit kind of heated about this topic because I think this really, really needs to be discussed and a conversation needs to be opened up about just how toxic and harmful this feminine energy dating advice really is and how misogynistic it is. And just what I would love is for women to just be very, very aware when they hear stuff like this. Oh, okay, that's misogyny. And this person doesn't have my best interests at heart. And so I'd love to hear what you guys think about this video, what your opinions are, whether you agree or disagree with anything I've said. Please know I welcome all opinions. You are free to express any of those opinions here on my channel in the comments section, and I'd love to hear from you. And I will see you next time. Take care of yourselves. Bye, everyone.